another day is here. Wake up, Billies, wake up, Billies. We gotta keep moving, na 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 na. Wake up, Billies, wake up, Billies. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Billies, wake up, Billies. Voice of opinion and place your calling. WB, get up, make every day count up. Wasted people, do your part, play a role, get where you need to. You can tune in from work or in your vehicle. If you got a problem, pick up the phone. Why wait? It's the time calling. It's a show.
Good morning and welcome to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes, XTV Morning Conversation here at 3304 Mandela Drive, Sweet Southside, Belize City for this morning, Monday, November 18, 2024. I'm Sister YaYa Marin Coleman sitting in for Brother Most High this morning. Give thanks to wake up with YaYa, we survived tropical storm Sarah. A lot of people get impacted by the rain and the flood. So we're there another Monday. Tomorrow the public and bank holiday. So I'll be with you on Monday and Wednesday. I know the usual lineup. Give thanks that we wake up. We can give an opportunity for reason with one another when we open the phone lines later. Right now we will have the weather forecast from the Belize Meteorological Service. The forecaster is Tariq Matthews, and then we'll go to XTV News Brief for the morning. Weather time.
Morning, Belize. The weather conditions prevails over our area. 24-hour forecast. Skies will be sunny with a few cloudy spells today and partly cloudy tonight. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated. The maximum temperatures for today will reach 87 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 90 inland and 77 up in the hills. The low temperatures for tonight will be around 79 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 73 inland and 67 up in the hills. The winds will be from the east, southeast at 10 to 15 knots, and the sea conditions will be moderate. A low tide will occur this morning at 6:09. A high tide this afternoon at 12:21, another low tide this evening at 5:03, and another high tide tonight at 11:16. The sun rose this morning at 5:59 and will set this evening at 5:16. The moon will set this morning at 8:55 and will rise tonight at 8:05. The outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night is for mainly fair weather conditions. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated with the chance for a few more over inland areas Tuesday afternoon or evening and over the north Tuesday night. In the tropical weather outlook for the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico, tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next 48 hours. For more details on our forecast products, please visit our website at nms.gov.bz. With that, we end this morning's forecast from the Belize National Met Service.
Private radio in Belize since 1989. Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
I think that because
regional and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news. The first private radio in Belize since 1989, Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news. The first private radio in Belize since 1989, Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news. The first private radio in Belize since 1989, Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
Sarah made landfall as a tropical storm just before 9 on Sunday morning in Dangriga, Stan Creek. The all clear was given by NEMA hours later at noon at the recommendation of Prime Minister John Briceño. However, flooding is still a major concern for various parts of the country. Principal hydrologist Tennille Hendy spoke of the rivers and waterways that could experience flood conditions.
We're seeing the flood warning remaining in effect for the usual areas, the Rio Hondo, the Mopan, Sibun River, Mopan, Makal, Belize River, but we have added now the severe for Sibun and City River, Bladen, and Swayze. Severe flood warning remains in effect for the Belize River watershed. Before we just said for the Makal River and its tributaries, but now that is being extended to the entire watershed, and our landslide warning remains in effect.
The Kaya district, specifically in San Ignacio, Santa Elena, and Benquevejo del Carmen, is experiencing flood situations currently, with water levels expecting to continue to rise. Principal hydrologist Tennille Hendy said that for San Ignacio and Santa Elena, the flood conditions are approaching historical levels.
What we are seeing with San Ignacio is that the levels are approaching historical Mitch levels and near to Eta Iota levels that were previously recorded in 2020. The dams continue to spill, and these remain above the spillway. And as Chief Met indicated, we are still expecting some more rainfall across the country, but specifically in that area. What they can expect is to continue to see increasing flood waters. How high it will get, unfortunately, at this point, I am not able to say that.
Belize experienced flood conditions since Friday. Principal hydrologist Tennille Hendy cautioned city residents and residents in flood-prone areas of the Belize district that they could expect flood conditions for the next 3 to 4 days.
Belize City, again, within the 3 to 4 day period, we have a lot of complexities with the Belize City area because we have both of the rivers being flooded. That Belize City 8 miles western mile, 8 Mile community serves as a drainage point. When one river system overflows, the other one basically absorbs and discharges the waters, but now we have 2 of them being flooded more or less at the same time. So what we can expect coming down into the Belize City area is that the 8 Mile community may see some flooding into Belize City. The normal areas that that experience flooding would expect to receive those floodwaters. In terms of the depth, as I know is the question most persons would like to know, we are unable to say that at this time because there are other areas that this water drains out to. We have the Crooked Tree Lagoon that serves as a retention point, and it's hydraulically connected via some wetlands to the New River system. So all of these systems sort of help each other out when drainage of floodwaters, but the normal areas should expect flooding in the next coming 3 to 4 days.
NEMA coordinator Daniel Mendes said that Belizeans have been heeding advisories and have evacuated voluntarily when suggested to do so. Mendes said that NEMA did conduct search and rescue operations overnight on Saturday as Sarah was approaching the country, but there were no major incidents to report. That brings us to the end of this morning's news brief. You may stay tuned to Creme Radio between 9 and 12 this morning to the morning stew to get additional news briefs and extended conversations. On Creme Radio at 12:15 there's a full news package, at 3:15 there's a news brief, and at 5:15 there's a full news package. At 6 o'clock this evening here on XTV there'll be a full news package. We'll take a short break and then we'll return for a conversation.
First private radio in Belize since 1989. The news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports.
back to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes for this morning, Monday, November 18th, 2024. It's the 35th anniversary of Creme Radio. I know. Most of you know it as the 17th, but when I come late for the hudut eating Friday afternoon, that when I found out that the actual date when Creme Radio come on the air 35 years ago was November 18th. So today the actual day at the anniversary, November 18th. You could call 280-5848 and tell you Creme Radio stories. Beautiful memories when you have a Creme Radio. The first down to hear it from the air. What are some conversations we will not forget? So make sure you call away. And then also calling and sharing an experience with Tropical Storm Sarah. How it impacted your family, your home, your neighborhood, your community. I know we get reports a lot of rains out west, including Belmopan, as well as Dangriga, San Ignacio, Benquevejo, from the news I just read. So calling and sharing our experiences, tell me if one me prepared, if me prepare on still get impacted negatively, want to learn from the experience, if one need specific help, maybe somebody could hear and help one in some way. And so, yeah, that's the vibes for today. It's also the day before the public and bank holiday, Garifuna Awareness Day, November 18th. And YUBAD Educational Foundation, this is our third year, we would have Belizean Garifuna Hour Stories for 4 Saturdays, usually from 10 to 11. And like again this year, we had an opportunity to air it on XTV, where we would invite a Garifuna person to reason with us for about half an hour. And then the next half hour, other people who are in the Zoom could engage in the conversation. So far, we've had Jerry Enriquez. He's been anchoring for us for the past 2 years and again this year. And this past Saturday, we had Renee Nunes from out of the United States. Saturday coming from 10 to 11, we have Ifashina Ifwenoemi. And then on the last Saturday of the month, we'll have Rodel Castillo out of Chicago in the United States. So you could also call in and share your knowledge about November 19th, the relevance of it in 2024. Kawe, 280-5848, that's the phone number. Now, I really don't want to have to to talk by myself, so I'd appreciate it for the calling. Today, also another date historically for African sisters and brothers in IT. I'll put my glasses on for read this. 221 years ago, on November 18th, 1803, was the Battle of Vertières, I think it's pronounced, Vertières. And that's a battle that the African people had with the French, and they won. So today's date is important for a number of reasons. And that's all I want to say about that right now. I'll be back here on Wednesday, and then I could share some more about that action. An action that's been taken by people in solidarity with our sisters and brothers in IT who have been under occupation for a period of time and are denied the right to their sovereignty and self-determination, led by the UN, the United Nations, other countries that are called the core countries, I believe, Canada, Europe, I think Brazil is in there as well. And so they're the ones who are making the decisions for the people of IT. And then you have other countries like Belize, Jamaica, Kenya, who are doing the dirty work, primarily African descendants, racialized as black, against our kinfolk in IT. So YUBAD Educational Foundation has been steadfast in being in solidarity with our sisters and brothers, signing solidarity letters, giving interviews, writing to the state to say what's happening there is wrong, and Belize should not be a part of the oppression of African descendants racialized as black people. And so one of the things why UEF started doing Belizean Garifuna Our Stories is similarly to the story of this country. Most of we don't know it. Most of we, if we know anything, we might know the singular narrative, my interpretation of European narrative, and then post colonization in during the political independence time in Belize, really what we've been told are single narratives, and Belizeans just macaparrot it for the most part. And so as African descendants racialized as black people, there are two groups of people in Belize who are identifiably African descendants racialized as black people. Now, you could have other people, well, not, as you look upon it, you know, I wouldn't say they're not a black person because they don't look black, but that person may identify as a black person because identity is a choice. And so if you were raised in a predominantly black household or a black community, and then there are the values where you know, the way of life where you get cultured into, then that identity where you could choose to identify as. So UEF recognizing that the ethnic groups of Creole and Garifuna are the two identifiable African descendants racialized as black people. Now I would say you also have Indian people. When you look upon it, then are definitely melanated people. Indian people from India. Me personally, I would classify them as black people, but they have to identify how they choose to identify. So the two groups in Belize are the Garifuna and the Creole people. And so I make it my business to find out about black people. And my position used to be, because I'm not of Garifuna bloodline, I'm very sensitive to tell other people's stories, that people have a right to talk for themselves, or take up space for themselves. I know people have, from a conversation we had Saturday with Rene Nunes, because the Garifuna people, many of them would have Spanish last names, and Creole people would have English last names based on the colonizers, one being Spaniards from Spain and one being English people from England. That because of how I look, clearly melanated, clearly African and proud, and I have one last name like Marin, a number of people have asked me if I had a Garifuna, and I said no. And I've been accused of not claiming my Garifuna-ness because I do have siblings who are Garifuna bloodline. I'm not. But for me, we're African descendants racialized as black people. So once I accept that I have one right as an African descendant for research, reason, debate, share Garifuna people's story, and because there was a gap, similarly to what I do for the Creole people, that's still African people's story, then we own it, we lead with it. And so, and I agree that there's a space for merriment, dancing, celebration. We're still here as African descendants, racialized as black people. We have every right to celebrate that we're still there. We're still the resist, we're still the struggle, we're still in communication with one another across borders, across waters. In addition to that, there's also a need to learn, to know, to reason. The more we know about who we are, the less other people could define we, and the less other people could manipulate we, use we for their interests. So, and I personally get excited every time I find out more about black people. I know they're in the world, but since I raised in Belize most of my life, when it comes to black people in Belize, that's one thing where excites me all the time, because the me that, the people that. So it was very important. I believe I asked a number of people why the date November 19th is celebrated as Garifuna Awareness Day. More likely one lot of way I say, because that's when Garifuna people came to Belize. And most of my life, that I know. Then in the past, maybe, I'd say 10 years, that I find out that there were another group of people, Garifuna people, who came before the November 19th date. So that it was November 19th, 1823, and that a group led by Alijo Bene, fleeing from conflict in Spanish Honduras, came to Dangriga. We also had a group who came in 1802. Now, in 1802, there were African descendants racialized as black people who were enslaved in Belize. There's a small group of African descendants racialized as black people who were free people or would have been a mixture of other groups of people. But the majority of black people in Belize at that time would have been enslaved people. And so that was, for me, that made a big reveal that in 1802, in a Belize town, you had enslaved black people, then you go down south and you had one group of free black people. I never know that. And so, again, I have to stress how important it is that we go do the research. We go learn about people. And especially people in a leadership, that we have a responsibility to, when we have knowledge, that we share it with others. I find that, I don't know if I would have said that that one generation will read as much as maybe past generations. I know they read because they're on social media. But when I say read, I mean that you want to pick up one book, or you want to read one ebook, or you want to read one journal, or you want to buy their mandala. You don't want active reader, that reading is an enjoyable pastime for you. Like you really, people have different things that they enjoy. I read for the pleasure, for the joy, for the fun. I like the whole experience of holding the book, writing in at the book, meditating on what I read, call somebody, text somebody and say, you read this book, what am I your overstanding? You know anything else about it? When I know, you know another book will give another perspective. I enjoy reading. So in reading and talking with other people, I get to learn more about our people. And it's inspiring, it's heartbreaking. I am constantly amazed at how much I don't know. So once I learn, then I naturally want to share, because I strongly feel that the more African descendants racialized as black people in Belize know the truth about our people, how our people resisted, and to understand that our story did not begin at enslavement. Before African people were enslaved by Muslims and Europeans, African people contributed to world civilization in many positive ways. So therefore, really keep one wide lens that our story is not just about the enslavement of our people. We tend to focus on it a lot. Some of us would say, are we free? Are we truly free people? Because so much are we mentally enslaved, then we can't say that we're free. One number away, no. One of the things we have found out this year, I get a new book. I want to show you, all right, Christy, I take the picture and ask Christy to show. One of my sacred texts to learn about Garifuna culture, lifestyle, history, current event is a book called The Garifuna, A Nation Across Borders. It is in social anthropology, edited by Joseph O. Palacio. That's what the front cover look like. And then you have the back cover. The number is 2805848. This is what I know. I don't want to have to attack, but since you know, call in yet. Just one of the paragraphs on the back cover say, the Garifuna are a true Caribbean people originating over 500 years ago, when the Aboriginal inhabitants of the island of St. Vincent intermarried with African slaves. Together resisting slavery and fighting fiercely against the conversion of their lands into slave plantations, British and French colonists vied to control the island and eventually deported the Garifuna to Central America, where the survivors formed communities along the Caribbean coast. Today, their vibrant culture has not only survived, but it is known worldwide through its music and dance. So I had that one for a period of time. But this new one this month is called Garifuna Continuity in Land, Barranco Settlement and Land Use, 1862 to 2000. Joseph O. Palacio, Carlson J. Tuttle, and Judith R. Lamb. And then I'll just read the back for now quickly. I like the pictures, they're vibrant. It says, Garifuna Continuity in Land, Barranco Settlement and Land Use, 1862 to 2000, is an historical overview of Barranco through the ownership of house lots and farmlands. Barranco is a village in the south of Belize which was self-settled by the Garifuna, a nation formed from the blending of African and Native American roots. We document the land of Barranco, its village lots and farmlands, the interplay between the formal government land systems and the informal systems of land tenure, the geographical clustering of ownership, kinship considerations in the inheritance of village lots, gender considerations in land tenure, shifting locations of farmlands, and the continuity of the village for a century and a half. By focusing on this continuity, this study can inspire others to respond better to current problems. I think I'd get myself in a trouble because I think there's a break that was due at 7 o'clock. So our break times are 7, 7:20, 8, 8:30, and 8:45. So I should have gone to break at 7. So the after 7. So break time. Welcome back to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes for this morning, Monday, November 18, 2024. On a cow, 2805848. It's not enjoyable for the other just talk. We have to come prepared if nobody no call for talk. So because tomorrow the Garifuna Awareness Day, I share about information that's usually not shared. At least I don't hear it. If it's shared, if you want to hear it, you go tell and tell me if I want to hear it, when I don't hear it. I just don't know. And so one of the things we are finding that is in my new book where I didn't know. And this book, I think this book was published in 2011, I think. Yeah. The one on Garifuna Continuity in Land Barranca Settlement and Land Use 1862 to 2000. One of the things where I can make sure this phone, make sure it up. Okay. So one of the things where I never know before is that for the first time I am seeing the last names of Garifuna people before they had Spanish last names. Trust me, I do a good job pronouncing some of these names, but I had never seen them before. Christy, I sent her that picture too. Good morning. It sounds like the phone to ring, but when I touch upon it, I am not hearing anybody. Well, I don't know what's going on with the phone line this morning. When the phone ring, the light come on. I saw the light there, but I don't know what happened. I'll trust the process. So on page 23 of this book, it says table 2.1, randomly selected non-Hispanized Garifuna names in the Trujillo area in 1821. Thanks, Christy. So they had a female age 7. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the name. YaYa. They had a male age 4, Bara Beno. Male age 2, Orinamo. And all these are unbaptized as far as religion, and they're from the community of Limonal. You had a female 52, Akambe. A male 15 years, Guayarano. A male 8 years, Yakate. Female 22 years, Makuma. Female 34 years, Yimaruyatare. Female 6 years, Mamimana. Female 62 years, Kayamo. Never have I ever seen, heard, thanks Christy, the names of Garifuna people before they had Spanish last names. And so I ask, the responsibility, I would say first and foremost, is on us to learn our identity and learn ourselves as African descendants, racialized as Black people. And then second, I would say it's on the state. They have the archives, you have the Institute for Social and Cultural Research, on the niche, that they have one duty as a decolonizing act to share these stories. I want to give the Garifuna people credit where credit is due, more so than the Creole people, that they've done the research, they have written, they have published, done really good documenting their own stories and not leaving it only to the state to do that. Not as much as far as the research I've done for the Creole people. The work that I really have great value for, the work done by our African brother Aaron Dofe-Iyo, and collaboration he do with other people, because sometimes the writer, based on the awareness of the writer, and people will have one level of bias, that's the human nature. So when I read them books and I go through the things that I research, I look for Black people. I look specifically for Black people that believes. I never bring my other book. I never know how I have this conversation. I never know how I have to talk so much. In 15 minutes, we're going to break at 7:30 and we have 2 cents come. One of the things that is of interest to me is changing the narrative from the singular narrative. So one of the singular narrative is that Creole people are a mixture of African descendants and British. The numbers now show that there were enough British people here for African descendants have children with, for make we have the group of people we call Creole. And based on the time period, Creole have different meaning. The one where I use, it means African descendants born outside of the continent of Africa, who I identify as Creole people in Belize. So as I go, this Sunday on Sunday Review from 10:30 to noon, Belize's only news review talk show, I produce, host here on XTV, simulcast on Crum Radio. We have with people there from out of ISCR niche. So we have the director, Rolando Cocom, and senior researcher, Giovanni Pinello, for have another decolonizing conversation. We had one in September. Based on their availability and willingness, we're going to try to have them every other month going into the Gregorian calendar year of 2025. So because I'm doing the research, I able for asking certain questions, and this is how I don't get paid a bag of money, if all right. But one of the decolonizing conversation where I have one interest in is that I have found 20 cited sources of where African descendants racialized as black people come from the Belize. 20. They include enslaved Africans from the continent of Africa via, let's say, Jamaica. They include getting African descendants from Jamaica, getting them from, when I say from Jamaica, when they brought them in, they brought them as enslaved people from Jamaica. And then there was another time period when we had African descendants in Belize as police officers. So they come from Jamaica, they come from Barbados. You have African descendants as a mixture with the Mosquito people at the 4. You have African descendants born in Belize, identified as Creole at the 5. There are 2 sources of African descendants who at 2 different, I don't remember that aired in 1826, I don't have my book with me, but I think one was in March and one was in December, that they were taken off a Spanish vessel, one I think bound for Cuba, or I said came from Cuba in March of that year, and then in December of that year, I think they were taken off either a Spanish or a Portuguese vessel. You have African descendants racialized as black people who would have been a part of the West Indian Regiment. And so I had said to we Belizean people, especially African descendants racialized as black people, that we have on duty for find with people, for learn who we, and be proud of that, own with people and understand that we have one duty to share this knowledge with our younger people, to pass the baton to the next generation of African descendants racialized as black people, which is why you have started to do the research on Garifuna people, because they're identifiably African descendants. Now, one of the, and it's good to, people do different research over a period of time, things that people may think that true, you have additional information where show that then things are never true, or you have additional information where they could expand upon. And so one of the sensitive matters for some people is that there was a narrative coming out of the Garifuna communities that Garifuna people were never enslaved. And so it's a gray area in that I would say the majority of the African people, even though they were not maybe working on cane fields or cotton fields or in timber extraction, the original people were in enslavement status, kidnapped from the continent of Africa on an enslavement vessel, mutinied, the vessel ran aground. So in that process, from the time they were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, human trafficked, they were in enslavement status. And then mutinied, became free. There were some enslaved people, smaller numbers, who escaped from surrounding Caribbean countries, got to St. Vincent. Now, when they got to St. Vincent, there were already indigenous people there. Now, I would want to have the conversation with Garifuna people. Good morning. Thank you for calling me. Talk to me. Where want to tell me?
Hi, good morning, Sister YaYa.
Good morning.
Good morning, Belize. Am I on the air?
Yes, you're on the air.
First of all, I want to say I thank God that this hurricane, went by Belize and no major damage except of water in the western districts and whatnot. Respect to you for the great revelation last week in terms of revealing of a brother, TV Ramos, status being born over there in Honduras, and came over here to Belize, and the great work that he did by establishing the 19th as Garifuna Settlement Day. Respect to our brothers and sisters on this great day, which is tomorrow, 19th November. In terms of our past, Sister YaYa, I think with today's technology, it should not be difficult for our people to really find out, one's identity, and especially with science, really we could get it right down to the nitty-gritty by doing a DNA and really tracing our roots right into whichever tribe out of Africa. But in today's Belize, those denying one's past is because they want to, because technology is at our fingertip with the internet today. So I'm saying for our brothers and sisters who may not know or refuse to accept their African ancestry and African past, you could do a DNA, or you could go on the internet, and there's a lot of information to be had right on the internet. Now for the various tribes that we have here in Belize, Garifuna, Creole, Maya, Kichi, Mupan, Yucateco, etc., I think that the Creole people in particular have to be given enough respect, because from all the tribes, the Creole people have been battered, have been, degraded, have been humiliated, and yet we hang in there. Other tribes came afterwards and really kind of ran past the Creole tribe because they was given various incentives by the United Nations, by the American State Organization of American State, the government of Belize, etc. But Creole people still downtrodden. When you look, at other people in Belize City sleeping on the streets, when you look at our little brothers and sisters in 2024 still begging for shilling, still walking about barefooted in Belize City street, that should not be.
Let me ask you a question. When you see those black people in the conditions that you just shared, you just look at them and you could tell they're black people, but how can you tell if they're Creole or Garifuna?
Well, sister, with my knowledge today, I don't differentiate between Garifuna and Creole. We are one people. We are one people. So that have been the tactics of the slave driver to wedge between the both tribes and that weaken us. So I don't look at it in that light. I look at whether it's a young brother from Bangriga or Belize City, it's my brother, it's my sister.
I asked because you said that the Creole people are most downtrodden, and then you give examples of, you say black people in a terrible situation. So then the way I hear that is that you just say that Creole people, you say like this, the bottom of the barrel. So I just want to wonder, when you say them black people, how you know it in a Creole or Garifuna?
No, I don't look at it in that perspective.
Okay.
In that perspective. No, definitely no. But looking at the reality though, and myself as a tour operator / tour guide that have traveled the breadth and length of Belize, when I travel to Bangriga or St. Bite or Hopkins for that matter, and I look at the condition of our Garifuna brothers and sisters in that part of the country, and then you come back, say, to Belize City, and you look at the condition of our Creole brethren and sisters up here, you find that our brothers and sisters have a little jump start in that part of the country compared to up in Belize City. Because Belize City being a swamp, first of all, you can't grow no food in Belize City. Not that you can't grow, but the environment being a marshy area compared to the south, which is much more fertile soil. And you could build your little house, you could catch your fish, etc., etc. Our people in this part of the country eating pigtail and pig snout, white flubber, and them thing there. It was the slavery thing that catch Creole people in this end of the country was very worse than down south. And the effect of that slavery is still being felt today on our people. So it is up to people like yourself, myself, and others that is keeping the fire burning, that is continuing with the struggle to see how we could elevate our people to a much higher level than what they are in today. It is hard because sometimes the resources is not there, but because we are not, this struggle is not for a resource, this struggle is to liberate our people. So regardless of what, we still, going forward, no bend, no turn. But I want to say that, yes, you could access the information in terms of finding out who you are on the internet, or you could do a DNA. And respect to you, Sister YaYa, for those names that you mentioned earlier, that is non-Spanish names and non-English names from our Garifuna brothers and sisters. Other names like you have in Honduras in particular, you have Garifuna last name like Chatouille. You have other names that I'm trying to remember now, like Ubaki. I remember some brothers from up in Punta Piedra and Cosura. This is northeast Honduras. Good friend of mine, Ubaki. This is not Spanish or it is not English. So some of the names of our ancestors, whether that came off the coast of West Africa or on the island of Saba and St. Vincent, maintaining and remaining with those original African people name or Arawak or Carib name, that's a great honor. Now, what happened, and I have always said this and I stand to it, I am not happy with the great work that our brother TV Ramos did and Alejo Beni did. And on Garifuna Settlement Day, you go in and have a mass in the slave master's church. I always oppose that. You understand me? You shouldn't, after you reenact the struggle that our people came through from St. Vincent to the coast of Nicaragua, Honduras, traversing that 80 or 90 miles across from Honduras to Belize, then you're going to come over and then you going into the slave master's church. So in energizing our people spiritually, because then you are accepting this image of the same people who enslaved us, who castrated our ancestors. You bow into that. So I'm not down with that.
I
am
need to
definitely
go.
not down with that.
I need to go to
Huh?
break, but I want to call me back after the break so we can stretch the stacking because we need to have it.
Okay, thanks so much, Sister
Call me
YaYa.
back
Bless up.
after
You
the break.
continue. Yeah. I mean, I think I could do it. Okay.
Thanks,
Bless.
brother. Thanks for the reasoning.
Yeah,
Guidance.
man.
Break time. It's 2 cents come time, sponsored by Fort Point Security. Welcome back to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes for this morning, Monday, November 18th, 2024. If you're just to tune in, I've been spending quite a bit of time this morning talking about African descendants racialized as Black people and identify as Indigenous, Garifuna people in Belize, and how we don't have enough conversation about the history of Garifuna people or the people that identify as Creole people. We only know singular narrative that has been passed on from the European colonizers and slavers. The brother, I hope you call back just now because that one serious topic you just touched. One of the things I also want to make sure I do is recognize the other people, because it wasn't only TV Ramas. In the Garifuna Nation Across Borders, on page 76 on the forming settlements, it says, few have reported on the celebratory events that commemorate the settlement of the Garinago. In Belize, it is a major event taking place on November 19th, honoring the date when Eliha Bene arrived, accompanied by a group from Roatan. After request in 1941 by Domingo Ventura, Pantaleon Hernandez, and Tomas Vincent Ramos, the government made it a formal holiday to be celebrated in Dangriga. 2 years later, the formal holiday extended to the Toledo district, and it cited the source Caetano 1990, page 35. In 1977, it was declared a national holiday after intense representation by the Garifuna community. So we tend to only hear Thomas Vincent Ramos' name, but there's also Domingo Ventura and Pantaleon Hernandez in this source that's cited. And I'm pretty sure there must be some woman in the Solway where, as is the norm, especially Black women, just erased, not recognized, not identified for the work what they do. And then another thing we have to find out, brother, you could call back, we could finish that conversation. Another thing we find interesting is that we often hear about what happened to the Garifuna people. Before I get there, so this is one question what I have. I think Malcolm X, the example Malcolm X uses, that if one can't have young ones in our oven, like one literal oven, would the offsprings be, because of the United States, he said biscuits? If when the Belize said, would it be Johnny Cake? Would the kittens then, would the offsprings of that cat be Johnny Cakes or kittens? Like, the location of part you born make your identity change. So if you're your pa, you're your pa. Regardless of a part of the world you born, you're still a mapa offspring, right? Regardless of a part of the world you're born. That's how I say Garifuna people. I don't know, and I really don't know, and I'm sure they have one study, maybe ethno something I think it's called. Somebody will know more, please call and teach me. I don't know how, like you have African people, they never call African people. You had Igbo, Ashanti, Kwatamani, you had, I don't know Kwatamani, they're not Kwatamani. You had different groups of African, what we call African people. You had different nations of people from the continent of Africa. Belize. Then people maintain their culture, their language, their spirituality, their practices, their beliefs. That's how they identify. Now, not because they then get lumped under African enslaved people, mean that then people lose their identity. Then they're still African descendants, would I say. So that's why the Garifuna people say that they are a mixture of African and indigenous. So remember, African descendants, Ghana, St. Vincent, meet indigenous people there. The indigenous people, Kalinago, some Taino, they meet them people there. Then them the indigenous people, they are the first people that for their people land, them people that there. African people call the St. Vincent. And then after a period of time, there's an engagement of African people and then indigenous people. So now African and indigenous people. Then people then say they found one new people. They're not Garifuna people. That's how they identify. When they left from St. Vincent and they war for over 100 years with the French, with the British, and we could go into that story in more detail. They then get shipped off to an island called Baliso. And Baliso, there were two what they call Carib Wars. One in 1772, ending in 1773, that was the first one. And the second Carib War from March 1795 to October 1796. And then between July 1796 and February 1797, they made up on the island of Baliso for like 8 months. And then they got shipped to Roatan. People died on the way. Now, I know here that Garifuna people form communities along Guatemala, the coast, Honduras, Nicaragua. We hear that. Well, I never know. And I didn't share it, because it's just the land. And I still got a lot of learning to do. If I wrong about something, somebody please call and correct me, add to the conversation. I'm open to learning. So this is how I get excited about things easily. I never know that how important Trujillo was. I've been to Trujillo twice, spent a couple nights. When UEF was active with the Central American Black Organization, had spiritual experience there. I never know how central Trujillo was for the survival of Garifuna people when they left for Roatan. And one of the things when I say, well, I never know, is that the Spaniards had Haitian people, Honduras, for work on the port. So, I know some people prefer not to hear when they read from the air, but I personally like it. I wish more people would read from the air. Miss JCRZ. Oh, Miss JCRZ, brother. Shun. Down the penny. I heal up respect, I say way too. We'll have our next break in about 5 minutes. All right, so this one of Garifuna Continuity in Land, Barranco Settlement and Land Use, 1862 to 2000. Page 23, on the Garifuna arrival in Central America, confronting the obstacles. It says, coming 24 years after their first arrival in Roatan, this count showed their first large-scale dispersal in the adjoining part of the mainland. Payne, who's somebody who do research, makes a comparison between the Garifuna and the men and women that Spaniards brought from Haiti to do manual labor in civil and military works on the port of Trujillo. They lived closer to the central portion of the Spanish-dominated town center than the Garifuna, who were widespread. So the Garifuna them is spread out. The Haitian people, when they bring for the manual labor for the civil and military works for the port of Trujillo, more concentrated. Another difference is that they were Catholic, while slightly more than half of the Garifuna were Catholic, with 48% being unbaptized. And this is a paragraph before the one we had the African or indigenous names. It says, furthermore, several still retain their own Garifuna non-Hispanized names, some of which are shown in Table 2.1, which is what I read earlier. On the basis of these traits, Payne makes the argument that the Garifuna displayed greater traditional folk characteristics than were in practice even 2 decades after leaving St. Vincent. So for me, I find black people again outside of Belize, yes, but I never know Haitian people that are Trujillo during this time period. Now the question keeps coming up: why are we not taught these stories? And the only conclusion I could come to, that because the more we learn about ourselves as African people, racialized as black people in Belize, the more confident we become, the more inspired we become to look after our own interests and hold ourselves and others accountable with claim for lead on our behalf. The caller called earlier and spoke about his position, and on here where I just shared just now about Garifuna people and the Catholic Christian religion. People have one right, that a human right, for have one spiritual or organized religious practice or not. No judgment, that the people human right. In the context of having a historical conversation, that's not the first time I hear the concern. I've had the concern, I've asked the question. And indeed, for the survival of people, like for people who live, they had to mask the African spirituality with organized religion for their survival. I get that. I rate that. We're no longer there though. African people that Belize no longer have to mask their African spirituality for their survival. So why still use European organized religion that has been oppressive to African descendants racialized as black people, in the name of Christianity, we get enslaved? So it's a valid question to ask. If anybody want to call 280-5848, I know they got a lot of people with a Garifuna scholars, well-learned people. It's an opportunity for have one public conversation. Share it with, no judgment. We have the reasoning for learn. Tomorrow will be November 19th. How much, like I say, I like another tell a good pame math, but if you subtract 1823 from 2024, 202 years ago, that the second group of Garifuna people came to Belize. 202 years ago. I talked to somebody the other day who told me they have one family member that lived with, they were 97 years old. So I just to say that to you, and they have some other people in the early 90s, late 90s that Belize. When you think at 202 years, you know, when you got somebody where in the 90s, it just gives you one overview of how the concept of how time is measured from a European perspective, really. And to say that these things are still very relevant. They talked to an elder where expressed deep disappointment, and they couldn't imagine that in 2024 that this would be the condition of African descendants racialized as black people. And the brother we called earlier shared the same concern. Renee Nunes mentioned it on Saturday for UEF Belize Garifuna Our Stories, the plight, the condition of black people in Belize. It's 8 o'clock and it's break time.
The Belizean American United Organization
Welcome back to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. We have a call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning. YaYa, this is Sandra Coy. I'd just like to comment on the dreadful, dilapidated state of the black community.
Yes, Sister Sandra. How are you feeling, sis?
Fine, I'm feeling fine.
Good, thanks.
I'd like to start with an incident that is taking place in South Africa as I'm speaking. As your listeners may know or may not know, South Africa constitutes one of the greatest mining enterprises, well, you could say in human history, and definitely for gold. So they have a lot of mines in South Africa that are now abandoned. There are still remnants of metals, of minerals in these mines, but they no longer offer mining on the industrial scale that they did once when they were when they were first started. And these abandoned mines have become a source of income for syndicates. They call them syndicates. They're like cartels, gangs, whatever name you want to give them. And they recruit labor from among South Africa's own poverty-stricken population, primarily the black population, and surrounding countries. And these people go down into these mines and they live on the ground for about 6 months of the year, maybe more. Everything is done down below. They eat, sleep, take care of the necessities down while they are working. And they are illegal. This mining sector does not carry any of the licenses, etc., that operate for the industrial mining sector. But they are part of the economy. And as we speak, the South African security forces are caught in a battle with South African civic groups to bring the miners out, because what the South African security forces did was seal off. There's a mining sector, I think it is in northern South Africa. I think that's where this one is located. And the security forces moved in some time ago, sealed off the mine, and denied that there were humans below ground. Well, it turns out that the families of those miners living below ground began to become anxious and worried because there was no contact with their family members working in the mines. And they clamored, and community groups, civic groups responded, and lo and behold, they went to court and got a court order instructing the government security forces to withdraw and allow food and living necessities to reach the miners, and for the miners to be able to exit the mines. And that's a standoff as we speak taking place.
But why did they seal it off, Sister Sandra?
Why did they what?
Seal it off.
So, to smoke them out, I'm using the words of one of the government authorities of South Africa. They were they're technically laying siege to them, just as the Israelis are doing in Gaza. they are laying siege to these miners, and nobody is sure of the amount of miners below ground, but it is known that sometimes they number in the thousands. These are all poverty-stricken people who desperately needing to survive get into this work.
And how long have they been down there, Sister Sandra?
Well, sometimes they are down below 6 months and all of that. And the implications of that for their health, in the abandoned mines, as an example, in all mines, there are gases are escaping because these metals, these minerals were formed during grand geological events. And in their formation, they trapped water, and then the water turned to steam, and then they mix with a whole mixture of different gases underground, producing things like methane, a whole series of other types of gases. And these men inhale this during their long stretches on the ground while they work. And they work with extremely primitive tools. And as I said, there's a current standoff between the security forces of South Africa and the civic groups that are seeking to go to the aid of the miners. They have brought out, up to last night, I think they had brought out either 3 or 4. It takes 45 minutes to extract one miner. And they are weak. These people are weak because the South African government stopped, by sealing it off, that stopped the entry of food and the other necessities. Now these are black people, and the authorities, South Africa is currently being led by a black president, and the bulk of the security forces would probably be primarily black. And definitely the minister who spoke very cruelly about smoking them out and they are criminals and so on, which is what the South African population, some of them support the action of the government and some of them don't. And the ones that don't have been leading a loud clamor to the point, as I tell you, of going to court. Now, my concern for that situation, and there's a concern for that situation as it is. But that situation illustrates your discussion that you were having a while ago. This is not now white apartheid South Afrikaners doing this to the black workers. These are black leaders doing it to black people. So how we get there? How did we get there? Because the same thing obtains in Belize, in the Caribbean, in the United States, the same thing obtains. There is a point in time when the society is split racially, vertically. It's vertically split racially and horizontally. So, but at that top layer, in that initial split, there are no blacks in that upper layer, right? So the top layer is white, then there is a section of vertical people who are white, and then there are a mass section of vertical black, and then at the bottom you could see black stretch right across the horizontal, the bottom section. And then comes the independence nationalist movements, be it Haiti, be it the Caribbean, be it the Anglo-Caribbean, be it the Spanish Caribbean, be it Belize, and they sing the song of, look at what these white people have done to us, and that they're all unified at that point. They're unified, all the black brothers and sisters are unified. But once they succeed admitted to that upper echelon, the aristocracy. The whites move aside and allow some of them in, and now they form a single ruling class. So it stops being a race problem and becomes a class problem. Because there are blacks up there, and that has been the problem in South Africa post-Mandela, to the point that whites who fought for black independence side by side with their black African brothers have moved aside to call out the corruption, the shifting vision. That's not what they went into the fight for. And we have a similar problem in the Caribbean and in Belize. How do you explain, YaYa, that not the garrison, and there will be an ethnic separation. The Creole population of this country was an extremely literate population. Was very literate. No longer is it literate. No longer. We have Creole people, and we also have Garifuna people, young people who can't read and write, who cannot defend themselves as whole. Their defense is left, in the case of those who are involved in the drug trade, to the lawyer class, who have moved up to that ruling class that stretches across both the vertical division of black and white. They have moved up now and they commingle with that ruling class. They use their people to get up there. They could never have made it into that ruling class if they had not used their people, YaYa. But they were willing to use their people. And that's not unique to black people. All people do that. The eternal struggle in Europe of whites against whites has been exactly that. That's the same struggle that crossed the Atlantic. That is the struggle that's taking place in America as we speak, with Mr. Trump and Mrs. Harris and Democrats and Republicans. It's an extension of the European class struggle. But when it crosses the Atlantic, it takes on a racial tinge because of the labor structure that evolved in the Americas. So we have a situation there in South Africa, as I said, as we are speaking, where they don't know if it's hundreds or thousands, because they know that there have been situations of thousands of people living below ground. And imagine this, YaYa. Black people cannot live away from the sun because the melanin in us prevents the absorption, control the absorption of sunlight. So we need to be in the sunlight to be able to process vitamin D. If we retire below ground and live on the ground, we are already black, and then we are not getting any sun. It's double jeopardy for our health, where vitamin D, which is an essential vitamin, is concerned. And don't tell me that there are not South Africans who don't know that. Black South Africans, there are black South Africans who know that. But when humans are battling for their survival, they don't give a damn who is the ladder they climb up to get where they want to get. And that is the same problem that's operating in South Africa is operating in this country. The same problem. And in the Caribbean. And then our problem was worsened because the colonizing structure generally tended to be absentee landowners. who mated with slave women, produced offspring. That offspring became their substitute managers, and they went off back to the United Kingdom to live out their lives. So our situation is even more complicated. So race now, and this is why I have argued all along, that our failure, particularly the black people's failure, to be concerned about cheap labor in the South that is slave labor, is only a matter of time before it has come back to haunt us. Black people can't get work because the workforce that is migrating from the surrounding region is prepared to work at rates that black people fought to eradicate and succeeded in eradicating, and then the mass migration movement allowed a fall in the labor rates, and these people who fought to get a better labor rate can't get work because nobody is going to pay them the rates that they fought for anymore. So you see, when you don't understand the interconnectedness of humanity, the interconnectedness of need, and then it's possible then to segregate people and manage them. You know, YaYa, many years ago, I was at the law library doing some research one day. And a young man came into the library. He was dressed in short pants, evidently looking very emotionally disturbed. And he asked the librarian if there was a certain legal person in the building. And she said, yes, he is in that back room. And so when the person heard his name, he came out. And right there in the open room with the librarian, myself, and I think there was another person in a back room into the to the south, to the north, because that other person had been in the south room. That legal person carried on a discussion about legal defense of that child with no regard for privacy, no regard for concern. And the South African brother who is leading the charge, going to court and fighting now to get these people out, made a point. He said, so you said that there were no humans in that mine. So what did we bring up these 2-3 people we brought up? What were they? Were they stones? And then he answered himself. He said, yes, that's what they were for you all. They are not humans. And these are black people he's addressing. And I make the same address to black people leadership in this country. So what are these young boys? They're evidently not human to you all. Evidently. And to the Caribbean, I say the same thing. Evidently they are not. Because you're not, this fight now is now not with this colonizer. This fight is with your own people. Your own people who look just like you, look like them, and have, this is what that brother, and he said yesterday, he said, I don't remember the exact wording, but it's very painful to have to go to court. Every time you're fighting these people, you have to go to court to get them to do the right thing for their vis-a-vis their own people, to get them to do the right thing.
I appreciate it, Sister Sandra.
That point, yeah.
Thanks. I have to go to break, but I appreciate the conversation as always. Thanks, Sister Sandra. Break time. to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes for this morning, Sunday, November 18th, 2024. What is it? Monday. What is it? I didn't live good. It's Monday, November 18th. Tomorrow is a public and bank holiday. Garifuna Awareness Day. I have to be on quick call because I'm going to break in a few minutes. Caller, thanks for calling. I have to go to break in 5 minutes. Talk to me.
It's me again. I just want to give another story.
Yes.
Toward the end of the People's United Party's rule in 2008, a hit list emerged of people who well, it was in that period. I'm saying I'm not linking it to the People's United Party. I'm just saying that a hit list emerged, and that hit list was a list of bad boys, bad young men. They were not old men. They were young. They were children. Some of them, and for eradication, for elimination, execution, and a friend of mine went to a cocktail party, and he got to talking to a black person at the party, and the person was expressing absolute solidarity in killing off these people. I think it was 80 people thereabouts, and my friend was horrified. You know, and part of his horror was, he said, but Chandra, he's black too. I said, well, why would you be surprised, honey? Humans function like this. Just as white people have killed white people, so black people have killed black people. And that person who my friend was speaking to was a newly arrived in the upper class. He wasn't born into that class at all. But in order to maintain a hold on that, his foothold on the spot he had there, he considered that these people down there at the bottom were endangering his and people like him, their position. So it is a thing we have to be prepared to confront and deal with. Just as South Africa has to confront and deal with the fact that, as somebody said in discussion, said, here we are now at the ICJ defending the Palestinians against genocide, where our own government is prepared to carry out genocide against, because while it wouldn't be genocide in terms of killing off a whole tribe of people, if you are going to eliminate 4,000 or 5,000 people by starving them to death, then that's saying 6 or 1.5 acres or the other, right?
Right.
So that is, you see, you can't. One of the problems that confront black people is we are not prepared to understand. I don't know if we're not prepared, but there is a thing called human beings. We are human beings. There is one human race, and the coloration within that human race is an evolutionary process for survival. I always tell my students, when you pick the hair off a dog or a monkey or a chicken, what's the color of the skin? It's not black. It's a muddy-looking, pale-colored. It's definitely not lily white, but it's what we may call white skin, because it's covered by hair or fur, and that animal needs to be able to process vitamin D, and if it has on fur, then how is it going to get it if the skin is also black? You see? So the same thing happened in human evolution. Why you think black people caught this corona so more easily than they seem to understand? Because melanin prevents us from processing vitamin D in the cold weather. You see, if you put on clothes and wear, you're covered now against the cold, then all that's showing is skin, but the skin is not bright to be able to take in a little bit of rays of sun. It's black. So you're still going to be processing because it's a little bit of sunlight in the winter time, right? A little bit of sunlight. So you're not taking in the vitamin D that your body needs to defend your immune system. So all of these things, you know, YaYa, let's take B12 vitamin. B12 is the vitamin that cobalamin that's very important for nerve development, brain repair. And it's also important for the formation of the red blood cells. It serves very, but in the case of the nervous system, super important. Now, vitamin B12 comes linked with a mineral, cobalt. It comes attached to cobalt. And to separate it from cobalt, that the body can use the vitamin B12, you have to, a protein is used, a chemical is used to create that separation because it's linked they're attached by a protein. And something struck me the other day when I was discussing it with a friend. Cobalt is one of the significant minerals in Africa, especially in that Central African region, but not only there. And when you study the geological map of Africa, it abounds in minerals, especially that South African area. So the material was there for human evolution. Now, the evidence that they have been able to, forensic evidence they have been able to come to is that B12 was obtained from tiny little animals like little tiny baby clams or mussels that clung to rocks and so, and our forebears drank that water or took something, a fruit, and that fruit had that thing attached to it, and so took in the vitamin B12 because there were no supplements in that time. But that they took it in, and they lived in an environment that was super rich in minerals. Don't fool yourself. All the wars that will be fought, have been fought and will now be fought, will be over those minerals in Africa.
Sister,
super rich.
I'll need to go, Sister Sandra. I want to finish the conversation, but I'm past my break time. If you can call back on Wednesday because it's a conversation that
No, I won't call back. I just called to share that.
I know, but I wanted you to finish it.
And this point about African evolution in the African continent. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Break time. Welcome back to Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. Just in time to shut the shop. It's been a really interesting morning. Not a lot of calls, yet the conversations, well, we'll get two, but really two heavyweight conversations that came full circle about the condition of African descendants racialized as Black people and what our responsibilities are to each other based on where we came from in Belize and where we are now. So thanks callers, thanks listeners, those who streamed online at YouTube XTV Belize and Facebook XTV Belize. We want to thank the people behind the scenes. This morning when we come in, Harvey Solomon was the security guard, now it's Shane Flowers. Upstairs here on the third floor, XTV Master Chief Operator Krista Flowers and Senior Technician Harvey Wagner. And downstairs, second floor, in Creme Radio, 35 years today, Creme Radio is Larry G. This show will repeat at 3:30 today, I believe. Yes. You can listen to it at your convenience, both on XTV Facebook page and XTV YouTube. Oh, no classes today. Children didn't go to class today, so my good choices. Tomorrow is the Republican Bank holiday. Garifuna Awareness Day. Remember our African ancestresses and ancestors. And let me just point out that one of the ancestresses from Dangriga in particular, one of the sacred spiritual leaders, her name was Sarah. And we remember her this morning considering there's a tropical storm named Sarah that impacted Dangriga. So just remembering November 19th, African Awareness Day, to remember our African indigenous ancestresses and ancestors who still work for we at all times in the spirit world, that we have to remember them, honor them, include them in our everyday liberty. I want to stay safe tomorrow, and Creator, African ancestresses and ancestors willing, I'll be back on Wednesday morning sitting in for Brother Mose Hyde. Until then, only the people want to save the people.
Wake up, Belize. 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 Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put the time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place the calling. WB. Be yourself, see yourself. But this is the show of people. Believe our hopes up to needless reason. Nobody feel left out in the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, and selfishness and